The 2022-23 NHL regular season is officially over, which means it is bracket challenge time. I'm going to be going series by series, round by round, giving you guys my predictions on how I think the playoffs are going to play out. There is a league for the channel for you guys to join and submit your brackets to, so the link to that will be down below at the top of the description. I do plan on giving out prizes to the winner, but I'm not sure what those prizes will be just yet, but we got some time to figure that out. My track record when it comes to these bracket challenges is pretty spotty. I think back in 2018, I didn't predict a single one of the first round matchups correctly. This year's going to be different though. I plan on doing a lot better. Listen to me, I sound like a Leafs fan. This is my year. It's going to be different this year. Now, before I have an entire angry fan base down below in the comments, let's start out with the Toronto-Tampa first round matchup, a rematch of last year's first round. Once again, Toronto with home ice advantage, and I am actually going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs in this series. In terms of game amount, I'll say it goes 6 or 7 games just because I don't think Tampa Bay is going to go down without a fight. The Maple Leafs have to win a round at some point with this core, don't they? Like, they can't just lose in the first round forever. They came so close to knocking off Tampa Bay in the first round last year. Game 6, overtime, they were one shot away, just couldn't get it done. I think the Leafs are coming into this series as a much better team than they were last year, a much deeper team, especially on the back end. And Tampa Bay, on the other hand, I don't think they're as good of a team as they were last year. They've kind of just been coasting since January 1st, playing like 500 hockey pretty much over the past few months. Now, the areas where I do think they have big advantages in this series: number one, goaltending. I would take Andrei Vasilevsky in a playoff series over almost every other goaltender in the league. Number two, obviously, the playoff experience. This is a core that has won multiple Stanley Cups together, have been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, and the Leafs haven't even won a single round yet with the score, so I do feel like that matters to an extent. But overall, I'm really excited for this series. I think it's going to be some great hockey. Obviously, a lot of offensive firepower is going to be on display between these two teams. Let's now move on to the next series, the Boston Bruins going up against the Florida Panthers. I'm not going to overthink this one. I am taking Boston, and I will say they do it in 5 or 6. This is literally the best regular season team in NHL history. I just don't see a scenario where they lose this series to the Panthers, especially with how shaky the Panthers goaltending situation is. I know Alex Lyon over the past few weeks has been fantastic, and he's a massive reason why Florida was able to get one of those wildcard spots. But are we really thinking that Alex Lyon, if he is the starter for game 1, if Florida is going to roll with him into the playoffs, is that a guy who can steal a series from the Boston Bruins? I don't think so. Moving on now to the next series, we have the first seed in the Metro, the Carolina Hurricanes, going up against the New York Islanders. Now, I'll be honest with you, I am not as confident in the Carolina Hurricanes heading into the playoffs as I was in this team, say, like midway through the season. I was really high on Carolina coming into this season. I had them as my President's Trophy pick. Obviously, being without Max Pacioretty and especially Andrei Svechnikov hurts them a lot. Those are 2 high-end finishers that they're going to be without for the entirety of the postseason, however long they stay in it. They haven't looked like one of the best teams in the NHL over the past month and a half. They just held on to that number 1 seed in the Metro by the skin of their teeth. Now, yes, the Islanders are a team that just made the playoffs by the skin of their teeth, but the last 2 years we've seen this Islanders team in the postseason, they've made the Eastern Conference Finals. The Islanders are a team built for playoff hockey. I think they're capable of an upset. That being said, I am still going to take the Carolina Hurricanes, but I'm going to say it takes them 7 games. I do not think the Islanders are going to be an easy out. Ilya Sorokin is a guy who can single-handedly win you a playoff series. They're getting Matthew Barzal back. I think this is going to be a lot closer than some people think. Moving along now to the final first round matchup in the Eastern Conference, and this is the first round series that I think I'm most excited to watch. The New Jersey Devils as the 2 seed in the Metro going up against the New York Rangers as the 3 seed. Obviously, there's history here. These teams are rivals, neighboring states. Going to be so much young talent on display in this series as well. Obviously, the New Jersey Devils have really kind of just broken out and taken that next step, and they did it in a big way. It's not like New Jersey just squeaked into the playoffs. They have home ice advantage in this series. They were one of the best teams in the entire league during the regular season. That being said, when it comes to my prediction for this series, I'm going to go with the New York Rangers, and I'm going to say it takes them 7 games. And now I have to kind of pick the game amount now that we're done all the first rounds in the Eastern Conference. I can't remember what I said for Boston, Florida. I'll say 5. This one I took Carolina in 7, Toronto in, what did I say? I think I said 6. And for the Rangers here, I'm going to take them in 6 as well. So the New York Rangers are the only upset, if you can even call it that, the lower seed team that I have winning their matchup in the first round out East. This is a team that made the conference finals last year, put up a really valiant effort against Tampa in those conference finals. I trust Igor Shesterkin a lot more in a 7-game series than I trust Vitek Vanacek, who has been solid for New Jersey this season, but we know what Igor is capable of. It's kind of the same thing I said about Ilya Sorokin. Shesterkin can steal you games. He can win you a playoff series on his own. In terms of offense, defense, I feel like these teams match up pretty well, but in net, I think the Rangers have the big edge there. So that's kind of what's making me lean towards them. So that does it for the first round matchups in the Eastern Conference. Let's now move out to the Western Conference, where we have the Colorado Avalanche, the 1 seed in the Central. They just clinched the 1 seed on the final day of the regular season against the Seattle Kraken, making their first playoffs in their franchise's history. Seattle has been an awesome story this season. They surprised a lot of people, a lot of really cool individual success stories on that team as well. Like Vince Dunn has had an unbelievable season. Jared McCann, 40 goals. They have the odds-on favorite to win the Calder Trophy in Matty Beniers. A lot to like when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, but this is another one I'm not going to overthink. Give me the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. It's a real shame that Gabriel Landeskog won't be returning for the playoffs, but this is a team that was still able to finish first place in the Central without their captain all season long. They know what it takes to win. Playoff Nathan MacKinnon is insane, so give me the Avalanche in this series, and I do think Seattle is probably going to get a game, so I'll say Colorado in 5. Next up, we have the 2 seed in the Central against the 3 seed, the Dallas Stars versus the Minnesota Wild. The Dallas Stars, a team I slept on heavily coming into this season. In my season standings prediction video, I had them missing the playoffs, so I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I'm not going to sleep on Dallas coming into this series. Give me the Dallas Stars, and I'm going to say they can get it done in 6. We saw the kind of performance Jake Ottinger put on in the first round last year against the Calgary Flames. Almost single-handedly won Dallas that series. I think Dallas is an improved team heading into this year's playoffs compared to where they were heading into last year's playoffs. Guys like Robertson, Heiskanen, Hintz have all taken another step this season. Jamie Benn is playing some of the best hockey we've seen him play in a couple of years. So my prediction is Dallas, but I'll be honest, I'm kind of on the Minnesota Wild bandwagon for these playoffs. I like a lot of players on that team. Obviously, they acquired Gustav Nyquist at the trade deadline. He's been playing really well for them. Love me some Matt Boldy, so I'm kind of rooting for Minnesota, but I just have a feeling Dallas is going to pull this one out. Moving on now to the next series, we have the Vegas Golden Knights against the Winnipeg Jets. Vegas finishing first in the Pacific and first place overall in the Western Conference. Winnipeg, they were, I believe, first place in the Western Conference like almost halfway into the year. Maybe it was halfway into the year, but obviously they really fell off during the second half, just barely squeaked into the playoffs. I am going to go with the Vegas Golden Knights winning this series. I'll say it takes them 6 or 7 games. I think anytime you have Connor Hellebuck in net, you're going to be in that series. Like, I can't see this being a sweep or anything like that. Vegas is just a very good team top to bottom when it comes to their forwards and defense. They're getting Mark Stone back as well. The goaltending does kind of scare me a little bit. Not sure how much faith I have in Jonathan Quick at this point in his career, especially when you have Connor Hellebuck down the other end of the ice. I honestly wouldn't be completely blown away if Winnipeg finds a way to upset Vegas, and I'm hoping that happens. One of my best friends is a Winnipeg Jets fan, so I'm kind of rooting for them just for his sake, but sorry, buddy. My prediction, Vegas in 6 or 7. I just can't fathom taking Winnipeg after the second half they had. Moving on now to the final first round matchup in the Western Conference. We have the 2 seed in the Pacific against the 3 seed, the Oilers against the Kings. A rematch of last year's first round, which was a banger of a 7-game series. I'm really looking forward to this series. I think it should be a lot of fun. My prediction, I am going to go with the Edmonton Oilers, and I'll say it takes them 6 games, and now we have to predict the game amount for the other series. I think I said Avs in 5, Vegas in 6, and I can't remember what I said for Dallas. I'll just go 7 because I think there's going to be at least one 7-game series in the first round out west. I just could not bet against Connor McDavid after the regular season that he just had, and since like January 1st, the Edmonton Oilers have been arguably the best team in the NHL. They've been right there with the Boston Bruins. Matthias Ekholm has been an amazing addition. Imagine being a Kings fan and having to watch your team face Connor McDavid in the first round of the playoffs 2 years in a row. I do not envy them for that. So that does it for the first round. This video has been going a lot longer than I expected, so we're probably going to fly through now from here on out, because once you get into like after the first round and the matchups are all hypothetical, we don't know if these two teams are actually even going to play. Obviously there could be injuries for each team after the first round, stuff like that. So let's quickly fly fly through these second round matchups, and let's start with the number 1 and 2 seeds in the Pacific Division, the Edmonton Oilers against the Vegas Golden Knights. Give me McDavid and the Oilers once again. It's just so hard to bet against Connor McDavid, and we can't use that, excuse or whatever you want to call it anymore, that he doesn't perform in the playoffs or he's not a winning player, stuff like that. McDavid and Draisaitl were unbelievable in the playoffs last year. Draisaitl especially playing on basically 1 foot. So give me the Oilers over Vegas. I think they're primed for another deep playoff run just like last year. Next up, we have Dallas versus Colorado. I think this would be a very good series. A rematch of, I think it was the conference finals in the bubble during the shortened season where Joel Kiviranta was the hero for Dallas against Colorado. I'm going to have Colorado getting their revenge over Dallas from that series they had in the bubble and advancing here to have a rematch with the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Finals. I think that would be a lot of fun to see once again, and I think it would be a lot closer of a series this year than it was last year. But before we get into that, let's quickly talk about the second round matchups in the Eastern Conference. The Bruins against the Maple Leafs. Man, I'm hoping this happens. The Leafs finally get over the hump and win a round just to have to face the Boston Bruins, who are kind of their kryptonite in the playoffs. And obviously this year's Boston Bruins is a much different version than any other Bruins team the Leafs have played in the playoffs before. And as much as I would be rooting for Toronto in this series to kind of slay that dragon and go on a deep playoff run, I do got to go with the Boston Bruins. They're just such an unreal team. Like I mentioned earlier, the best regular season team in NHL history. Now, that doesn't guarantee playoff success, but this team really, it just feels like they don't have a weakness. They just have a different swagger to them this season. So give me the Boston Bruins in this matchup against the Maple Leafs. Next up, we have Carolina against the Rangers. I think this would be a very fun series, a rematch of last year's second round where the Rangers were able to defeat the Hurricanes in 7. I am going to take the Rangers just like last year, but I don't think it'll take 7 games. I feel like they could do this in 5 or 6. Like I mentioned when talking about this series between the Canes and the Islanders, I have my concerns about the Hurricanes. I think it's going to take a lot out of them just to get through the Islanders, and then I think the Rangers should be able to take care of Carolina in the second round. So my conference final matchups, we have a rematch of last year, Colorado and Edmonton, and then Boston and the Rangers out east. So let's start with the Oilers versus the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Finals, and I'm actually going to go with the Oilers getting their revenge, making the Stanley Cup Finals. It just seems to me like there's a different feel about this year's Edmonton Oilers team. Like I said, second half of the year, they've been arguably the best team in the league. I think they have a much better goaltending situation heading into this year's playoffs than having Mike Smith going into last year's playoffs. Obviously, the whole Jack Campbell situation, and that contract hasn't worked out well, but Stuart Skinner has been really good for them. Their defense is much better, especially with Mattias Ekholm on the team. He's brought some much needed stability to that blue line. I think this year, McDavid is getting to the Stanley Cup Finals. Give me the Oilers over the Avs. Moving out east now, the Rangers and the Bruins. I know it's the obvious pick, but I am going to go with the Boston Bruins over the Rangers. Like, they lost 17 total games in regulation and in overtime and shootouts in an 82-game season. If I'm not mistaken, they only lost 2 games in a row, like twice or something like that this season. So just the thought of a team beating them 4 out of 7 is insane to me. And even though I just said the thought of a team beating Boston 4 out of 7 games is insane to me, I'm taking the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup just for the sole purpose of not being too predictable and having Boston win the Stanley Cup, because I feel like almost everybody is going to have a bracket that has Boston coming out of the East and probably winning it all. I don't know about you guys, but after having that kind of regular season, winning the Art Ross, winning the Rocket, and almost certainly winning the Hart Trophy as well, I would love to see McDavid cap that all off with a Stanley Cup. I'm sure there's a good amount of you that would be in that same boat with me, unless you're a Flames fan probably. And for enter the total goals scored in the finals, let's say there's like an average of, I don't know, 5 or 6 goals a game. I think it'd probably be a long series, 6 or 7 games. I'll just say 36 goals are scored in the Stanley Cup Finals. So that is my bracket. Don't take this too serious. It's just for fun. If I predicted your team to lose at any point in this video, I'm sorry. I'm not a hater, I swear. Like I said at the start of the video, I did create a channel bracket league for you guys to go and submit your brackets to. So the link to that is at the top of the description. Will be some kind of prizes for probably like the top 3 finishers at the end of the playoffs or something like that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're as excited as I am for the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, be sure to drop a like on this video. That's the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this is your first time watching and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.